ironic? She's
No,
a highly
but
educated teacher. Let me tell you, this
I
is
know. Oh, we're the
she.
worst. Teachers, raise your hand if you're the worst student. Like we're the worst. No, by that, I mean after a long time of so direct marketing works. It's not that it doesn't work anymore. It works. There are many of us sending similar messages to similar people. So once you realize that, because e-learning now is at a different place than it was 5 years ago with as many people who know about it. I was doing e-learning. I didn't even know it had a name to it. I didn't even know what it was when I first started doing it. It was like, oh, you want me to do some more teacher stuff? I can do that in my sleep.
Right. Hello, hello, everybody. Yay. Look at all the people. Yay. Hi, everyone. I'm Tish Hicks. I'm the Master Sensei of the VO Dojo here in Burbank, California. And this is our monthly Q&A webinar, Q&A called Ask the Sensei. So each month I'm here. Our home studio master sensei, Dan Leonard, is here answering tech questions. And we're joined by one of our esteemed colleagues, who today actually happens to be one of our dojo senseis. Terri Nicole is joining us today. She'll introduce herself fully, but she has been part of the dojo team. She works with us on curriculum, and one of her specialties is e-learning. So we'll answer questions about anything that you have. So don't think you have to make up an e-learning question, because this time is for you to bring up any questions that are on your mind. What are you thinking about? What are you worried about? Where are you stuck? What would you be interested in? Anything that you have on your mind, voiceover wise, we're here to talk about. So let's see. So what we'll do is everyone knows what the dojo is, full training program, et cetera, et cetera. We'll introduce Dan, we'll introduce Terri, and then we'll start taking your questions. So if you want to start putting your questions in the chat, we'll be taking them from there, and then we'll bring your voice in the room. And also want to introduce Jeffrey, who is not me, but he is dojo team and he's here supporting us. So he'll be fielding questions and bringing the questions up for us. So, all right. So Dan, why don't you tell us who you are, what you are up to? And most people know you because you're infamous.
Well, infamous. All right, we won't go there. Yeah, hi, I'm Dan Leonard, the home studio master, although I've changed it to the home voiceover studio master. It's just my website is homevoiceoverstudio.com. And I work with the dojo to help you guys with your home studio tech, which apparently nobody understands except people that have been doing it for a long time. And if you're starting out, there's an awful lot of misinformation and just utter mythology out there about your home voiceover studio setup. And if you have a question about any of that stuff, I am here for that. And I've also done an awful lot of e-learning, and sometimes the techniques and formatting are a little different than, say, doing commercial work. So that's what I do.
Excellent. And Terri Nicole, introduce yourself and tell us what you are up to. And then we'll start taking questions. We'll answer as many questions as we can in the hour. We'll stop right at 11. And then if there's more questions, sometimes we're able to hang out for a little bit afterwards. So if you can plan on that, you can. Okay, Terri Nicole.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Terri Nicole. I am here in Atlanta, originally from Cleveland, Ohio. And I do e-learning. I do an awful lot of e-learning. And what's so funny is that we found out that my great grandfather was at Tuskegee University enrolled in the teacher program in 1900. This is like a new fact. So apparently it runs in the blood. And I'm at Terri Nicole VO pretty much everywhere.
Yay, excellent. Well, let's start taking some questions. And Terri's also been working on a voiceover curriculum that we'll tell you about as we go along. That I'm super excited to have her share with everybody. Yeah, so Jeffrey, why don't we get started? That was good succinct intros.
It,
And look at all
cer-
the people that are coming. It's great.
it certainly was. All right, so first question, hi Oscar. First question is from Alexis Pellick. Go ahead and unmute yourself and pose your question.
Yeah. Where's
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, let me find you. Where are you?
I
Oh, there you are.
don't
See you.
have my
There you are.
camera on,
I
but
got it. That's okay. No
I can
worries.
turn it on for a sec.
There you
Hi.
are. Hello.
Hi. Hi. Right. So my question just about e-learning, when you're looking at rates and things like that. So I'm referencing the GVAA rate guide. So I just wondered, why is e-learning typically billed per word rather than per minute, like other types of narration?
Oh, okay, cool. I understand the question. I thought you were thinking about like broadcast. So obviously you're internal. So some people actually do a per minute, and it really depends on who your client is and how they like to be billed. Really, that's what it comes down to for me. So my clients who want to be billed because it works for their workflow, even though I prefer per word, that's just where I live. If it fits their workflow better and they don't have to change anything the way they're set up in their accounting, I always do what works best for my client. But and having said that, I have a client. He does me per word. He does another person. The company does another person per minute. So people can be flexible, but always ask how they would prefer to be billed, I would say. And Dan, I
And
don't know if you want to.
why is your preference per minute?
Per
Or per
word,
word, I'm sorry.
per word, because I can give an accurate account of that. You can do a word count and know exactly how many words, and then you can even use the type of word counters that count when there's like acronyms and numbers to get a really specific one. Per minute is more of a guess where you're guesstimating, oh, there's about 160 words in a minute. E-learning is a little slower, maybe 140 words per minute. It's just a lot of calculation. Not a lot, but per word is easier. I can give the client, be super accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything to add on that, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, having been doing e-learning since the beginning of e-learning, you know, it's a real crapshoot. I mean, it depends on who the client is. If there's somebody that's been doing it a long time, that's their primary production portfolio, they're going to have they're probably going to go for a per word rate. I find that people who are acting as agents, and as Terry will probably attest, there are very few agents that are helping anybody with e-learning, despite the fact that that's where the money is. And that's where the work is. And you can charge by the minute, you can charge by the word. All you got to do is the math, something I'm not really good at, but it's like, how many words is it? How long, how many pages is it? I used to charge per page. I've charged by minute. I've charged by word. If you, I did a job that was 25 cents a word, and it was tens of thousands of words. So imagine, how profitable something like that could be, and not hard to produce. So it's a matter of just ask the client, what's your budget, and how do you prefer to, to be billed? Is it by minute? Is it by word? Is it by page? Is it by project? Because you can look at a project and the scope of a project and look at the different rate guides and see, what's going to be most beneficial to you. But, in doing that, always do, when you're negotiating, make sure it's something that both sides will be happy with. And as long as both sides are happy, then proceed.
Excellent. Great. Is that helpful, Alexis?
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's great. And
Good.
I just want to say to Terry, were you talking about a grandfather or great grandfather that you just found that out about? That is so cool.
Great.
Great grandpa. That's
Great.
Awesome. What a
Yeah,
fun
we were
find.
like, we've heard tales that your grandfather went to Tuskegee, and to actually go to ancestry.com and find that out, we were just like, he's one of, I think, he was 26 years old in 1900, and he was like one of 17 people in the class. You could see the class list, and there was one woman. So teaching was thought of very differently. We think, oh, women are the teachers, especially at lower grades, but it was like the men were in school for teaching, which is just awesome. Thanks
Very
for sharing
cool.
that with me.
Interesting. I think it's also fantastic too. Dan, you have an education background. Terry, you have really huge education. So, are there a lot of educators on this call? That would be interesting. Put in the chat if you're an educator. That's always interesting to. Not that you have to be to do e-learning, but I think you spend all that time doing that. Yeah.
If you're if you're a classroom teacher, I mean, that's your superpower in getting into e-learning, because you can just imagine yourself in front of your class doing whatever the material is, as long as you sound like you're convincing with it. And so if you have any education background, e-learning is a great way to get your, if not your feet wet, but the rest of your legs soaked too.
Yeah. What's the next question, Jeffrey?
All right. We got Marlene Goodman. Marlene, go ahead and hello again. Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. You can hear me?
Yeah.
You can.
Oh, goody. That's working. Yeah, my thing is, how the heck do you get started when you don't, you got to learn all the technology and so forth. Where do you begin as a kindergartner?
No, it's not, first of all, it's not that complex. I mean, you need to understand that there's basic elements, right? You need a microphone to record. You need a computer to record into that has a DAW, a digital audio workstation, so something to edit. And you need a place that makes things quiet enough to record, right? So those are 4 basic things that you need. The technology today is such that you can, for a fairly succinct amount of money, get a pretty impactful setup. And then the key is, and I'll hand it over to Dan from here. The key is what's going on in your space. What is your budget? What is going on in your space? And what is the work that you're planning to do? So those all become basic questions. Then you start answering one and you get it set up. And then I think a lot of working with technology is really working with technology. Once you make a decision, then what are you doing and how are you doing it? What are the results you're getting and how do you keep on learning as you're going? What are your thoughts, Dan? Obviously, this is your realm.
Yes, and welcome. Yeah, don't overspend on stuff. If you're just learning and just setting up, it's not the best equipment that you need, because the best equipment doesn't change the way you perform copy at all. I don't quite understand. I gotta have the best mic. Well, yeah, you need to have a mic. Generally, a good studio condenser mic over $150 to $200 will probably suffice, along with the digital interface like a Scarlett 2i2 or a Solo or something along those lines. You need those. It's all that equipment that allows you to do what you do. And it's not really sophisticated. It's taking the mic, plugging it into the interface, taking the USB cable, plugging it into your computer, getting your computer to identify where your input is. And, that's how you set it up. But there's 3 factors, even though part 1 is part A and part B. Number 1 factor is the acoustics of the room you are working in. It's got to be a very dead space. How you do that is up to you. A walk-in closet full of clothes kicks butt. Otherwise, there are some techniques you can use to dampen the acoustical signature of the room. Also, an extremely quiet space, where you're not hearing outside noises, you're not hearing the washing machine, people flushing toilets, the clogging stairs, that sort of thing.
So some heads nodding.
Yeah, keeping the noise out and then reducing the reverberation within the space that you're recording in. They are 2 totally different things. There is no such thing as soundproof foam. So the next person that says soundproof foam will actually have a hand reach out from the internet and grab them. Tell you, no, that's not what it is. Second part is proper microphone technique, which you are seeing me perform according to my philosophy. And that is, have it upside down, hanging like this, at about the height of the bridge of your nose, the bottom of the mic or the top of the mic, depending on how you're addressing it. So your copy is down behind and underneath. And by doing this, you can go Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers and you will not get any plosives. And you get the microphone it'll be just at the upper edge of your periphery. You want to forget there's a microphone there. People have a tendency to, when they're on microphone, to become very loud. And they tend to over project. And the more you project, the more the acoustics of the room come into play. So conversational, just like that. The other piece is setting proper input levels. Nobody understands this. It just boggles my mind that so many people get into voiceover and like, the input levels, what's that? Depending on what software you're using to record, if you're using Audacity or Twisted Wave or, God help us, GarageBand, or some of the other, digital audio workstations, you'll have a meter on there. Here's the key to reading the meter. Super duper simple. Don't ask anybody else because they won't explain it to you in a way that you'll understand, because they'll start talking about dB and RMS and all that stuff is irrelevant if you do it right up front. And that is always in the green, always to the yellow with an occasional flash of red. If it's just in the green, as we say, you're too lean. If it's all yellow, you could be a little more mellow, but that's okay. In the red, you're dead. So you want it to be loud enough, but you don't want it to be too loud. So we use the traffic light metaphor there. Green, always in the green, always in the yellow, with a flash into the orange, but not really into the red. Anything less than that is not loud enough. Anything more than that, if the red light is constantly on, is too much. All right, now I know that's giving you information with a fire hose with your mouth open, but hopefully you all got that. That is the simplest explanation for how to get your levels set right. And generally, it's anywhere between 75 and 80% of your gain dial. And that's the name of that tune.
And that's that. So that's a lot of information, Marlene. But if you keep on breaking it down to, you need something to record, something to connect something to your computer, a computer, and be in a space where, as Dan said, the sound, the vibrations are not reflecting, right? The sound is not reflecting; it's being absorbed, and that there's not as limited outside sounds. Those are the things you take into consideration. And one of the things I love working about Dan is that he understands that everybody's situation is unique. So you can listen to everybody talking about everything, but it really comes down to your space right now at this moment. So, yeah.
And one thing I'll add too, Tish and Dan, is it sounds like, when you're first starting, at least, it sounds like so big and difficult. And it's something you absolutely have to get right. But then you don't spend a lot of time worrying about it if you get set up well, right?
Yeah.
And then you can focus on the work, which is the work, know, the auditioning and doing a good performance or your art, your craft.
Yeah. And I think that getting set up right, and then having someone that you can ask questions to. And the more you do it, then the more you understand, like, wait, what's this? And then you can ask good questions. And then you have people who, this is why I have Dan here, because I can talk a little bit about the tech stuff, but that's all I usually talk. So yeah. Good. Well, hopefully that's helpful, Marlene. And then the other thing that I think is really, really important, if you're starting out, or if you've been doing it for years and you have to, suddenly you need to, I think most everybody had to make adjustments over the pandemic. So if that's still stressful for you, but if you're just beginning, understand that there's a lot of people like in LA and who've been doing this for 100 years, who just have always gone to studios and then had to figure it out as well. So you're not alone in this learning curve of figuring out that the technical is part of what we do. And it's always shift, there's foundations, and then so it's something we're all responsible for, but you're not alone in getting it done. So yeah, well, let's move on to some other questions. Oh, wait, you know what? I wanted to say one more thing. The other thing is the mindset about it. When we haven't done something, we haven't ridden a bike, when we haven't traveled internationally, when we haven't, tried octopus. The things like we don't know is like, what is it? What is it? I don't know. And so a lot of it is just calming your mindset to going like, okay, I don't know this. How can I break it down to simple things that you don't have to freak out about it, right? And then like anything, the more you do it, the more it just becomes something that you do, and then you do it, right? Yeah. Okay. Next question, Jeffrey.
All right. I think it may have been answered in the chat, but I'll pose it open to the room. Lori Pastor, you had a question about museum audio tours.
Really specific niche. Yeah. Where are you, Lori?
Hi.
Oh, there you are. You're behind my chat. There you are. Hello.
Hi, Tish. Hi, Terry. Hi, Jeffrey.
Hi.
Dan. And everybody. Hello. I fortunately I did some direct marketing, and I got a response from someone, a company that does museum audio tours, and they're asking me what my rate is, and I have no idea. And also, I'm wondering about the union aspect, union, non-union aspect, because it's, I believe it is covered under the SAG after contract, but this is for a foreign company in a foreign country. So anything museum audio tour you can tell me would be so appreciated.
Mhm.
That's a great question. Thank you, Lori, for that question. I'm not going to be great on the SAG after part, so I'll let someone who knows more about that handle that. But I do museum audio tours. So in my experience, that has been more of a budget based. To be that's in my experience, and someone else. I know there are people in the call. I see other e-learning people on here too. So, but it has been a lot of back and forth of like, I get your rate. This is my budget. How can we make this serve each other well? I've got some things coming up. I'll earmark you. So for me, the museum stuff has been budgeted because I've gone through more like independent people who write they write it, they produce it, as opposed to going to the source like the museum itself. Although I do that too. So it seems to be different. Yeah, exactly. So when it's an independent person, I do always ask, what is your budget for this work? That it seems to be the best way for us to both be happy. When I've done just did something for the Science Museum of, was it Oregon? I don't know, Sybil might be on my mind, but, and that was just the regular booking rate. Actually, it was a little better than my rate. My rate is 30 cents per word. GVAA, I think, has it between 25 and 35. Sometimes if your e-learning is public facing, you bump that up or you ask for a fee, you negotiate, you work it out. To me, everything is a negotiation. You have all these wonderful rate cards to give you like, this is industry level. So don't be like way down here and don't be well, you can be way up there if you want, but just, have that in mind, your professionalism. And then, for me, I'm very client based. I'm like, Marie, what's your budget for this? And what's down the line that you might also tap me for. So that's my 2 cents. Dan, you've done an awful lot of work in that field.
Yeah, well, a few museum tours here and there. The basic question, you're absolutely right. What's your budget? Because you're dealing with, generally you're dealing with the actual museum themselves, and they have no idea what it is they should be charging. So they come up with a budget, and once they realize that, you're worth a lot more than what they're willing to pay, that they'll either negotiate up, or they can go find somebody else who wants to do it cheap and not entertain their museum guests as well as you can. So there's no standard rates for this kind of stuff. It's long format narration. Sometimes it requires a little bit more work because you've got to divide things up into individual files and doing it exactly the way they want. But you always ask up front, what's your budget? What is it you're planning on paying for something like this? And then you can break it down into a per word thing, and which can give you a little bit of room to negotiate up with that. Well, I charge this much, so it's only going to be about 10% more, and then that's one way to go about it.
And it also seems to me then if you're charging by word, that requires someone tells you how like what is the scope of the project too, right? Because if it's a 75-minute audio tour or whatever with massive descriptions with references, art history reference, like how complex is how I mean, good
Yes.
audio tours are simplified. We were just at the Getty Villa a couple of weeks ago for my anniversary, and we were just stunned of like, wow, that was so concisely put together, that description. So, but I think it helps you when you're quoting something, you also need to know the scope of the project, right? How much is it? And then I think also with any narration, I would imagine this is for any e-learning, but any narration project, what is the complexity of it as well? Because that's something else you need to take into account, because if there's lots of things that you need to make sure that you have the pronunciation, or are you, so there's a lot of variables that you also want to take into account there.
You got things like acronyms and stuff like that. Do you want them spelled out as, VOBS, or you want it as VOBs? You've got that sort of thing. That's something that's part of, getting it right with the client.
Yeah. And then on the SAG part, if you need to know, so there's two things. First, working internationally, rule 1 applies no matter where you are working in the world. That is the whole idea, that it's rule 1. So, if you're choosing to build your career doing union work, that is the game. Now, the thing about doing anything, particularly non-broadcast, is that if you charge a certain amount, you can convert the job yourself, even if your client isn't offering you isn't offering you a union contract, right? A union agreement. You can charge a certain amount of money and then convert that work to be applied to your union earnings. Does that make sense? Sorry. And if you want to know more about that, you should talk to Tim Friedlander and Bethany Monroe at Soundbox LA, because they are great people to talk to about all of those things. So yeah, and congratulations, that's fantastic. Yay, direct marketing working, and yay, having a client who's ready to work with you. That's fantastic. Yay.
Yeah, so and we don't sign contracts for stuff like this, like agreements. Like it's just like you agree to pay, and you agree to the pay, and you do the work, and there's no like contracts.
I think that's I mean, if you get someone who's willing to do a SAG agreement, you could talk to SAG and say what are the forms and what do they need to fill out, that usually your agent would do if an agent was taking care of it. In terms of that's your business practice, and Terri and Dan, maybe you can jump in here, how you make sure that everybody's on the same page. Do you have an agreement? Do you make sure everything's written in emails? What are your processes for creating client agreements?
Terri, why don't you go first with that?
Okay. I was looking at you too, like who's gonna. So I deal mostly with instructional designers and project managers, and I know their workflow is ridiculous. So I have, and I have a course, and I teach this in the course. I have something called a brief, which gets the most important information back and forth, like what is this? Who's your audience? What's the tone? How do you want to deliver? It's brief, and I create it with an instructional designer, and so that is the most efficient way for me to have both of us have a copy. Some people do require a contract. They are few and far between for me. So, for example, some of the financial institutions, I do a lot of work for Ernst & Young. They are, I mean, I have to take like e-learning myself to work at Ernst & Young. I'm like, I'm going to sexually harass myself at home. I don't know, but I'm going to take this because it's mandatory, which is good because it's good practice to actually take. So any of you all who are still, I see a lot of corporate trainers on the call, yay, and teachers, woohoo, you have an edge, you have a superpower. This is going to be a great thing to explore for you because you understand what it's like to talk to people and realize they're people, even though you're teaching a subject, you're always teaching people. So that is the superpower that you have that you bring. But yeah, so back to my point, instructional designers are really, really busy. I don't deal with contracts. They haven't preferred them, but some people do. And I always have a patent, just like a simple contract that you can fill in the blanks. But then sometimes that slows down their process because then they have to take it to their legal department if it's a firm. So I'm really reluctant to use a contract unless it's necessary, but I have one ready. So I think it's a good practice to keep one in your hopper. So when it comes to it, you can whip it out. It's simple, keep it simple and ready.
But have everything written somewhere, right? Like
Yes.
that there is something that
Yeah.
everyone can see and we can refer back to. You said 35 cents per word, and this was the word count, and now it's
Absolutely.
something else. And this was the
Absolutely.
date, yeah.
And I also send out an estimate. So I use QuickBooks and I send out an estimate before I begin the job. So it's there before I even say one word. And they've agreed to the estimate. So there you go.
How about you, Dan? Any best practices there?
Yeah, I have found, and since I've been doing this so long, things changed over time? Not really.
Oh, they haven't.
And Terry's right. Send out an estimate. That's a good practice to have. I have found that once you have an established client, a lot of that stuff just goes by the wayside. It's like, hey, we got a project for you, and what their established pay guidelines are, and the idea is when they hire you, do all your due diligence, look and see, if you want to have a contract. Generally, if you're working with a slightly larger company, they will have an NDA, and the NDA will cover a lot of this stuff. It's like, a non-disclosure agreement. I mean, in other words, you're going to be learning proprietary stuff here. It's, you can't tell anybody else what you're doing or why you're doing it. And generally, the pay structure is built into those as part of the contract. So when you get an NDA, don't just sign it, read through it and see what it is that they're asking you to do, how much they're going to pay you, is there a deadline, what their usage is, as somebody likes to say, ears and eyeballs. Is it just for internal use, or is this something that's going to go out on some paid TV show on a Saturday morning? I've never seen that, but but you want to be sure what it is what's the scope of the work you're doing. So take the time to read that. I would suggest there's a great book by our good friend Rob Siglan-Paglia called Voiceover Legal, which just look it up. And he's updated it, and he has templated contracts in there, and he talks about all the things that you need to know, when you're doing these things.
Thank you for that. Thank you, guys.
Good questions that we covered a lot of territory. What other questions do we have, Jeffrey?
Sure. I'm going to go do something a little bit crazy here. There's been a burning question that I see pop up more than once. So I'm going to call on Audrey Williams and Terry Briscoe, and we're going to knock out a few people at once. And Kevin posed it as well. But basically about how, like, kind of direct marketing approach to piggyback off of that. How do we find work in e-learning?
I cheat.
That's ironic. She's
No,
a highly educated teacher. Let me tell you this.
I know. Oh, we're the worst. Teachers, raise your hand if you're the worst student. Like, we're the worst. No, by that, I mean, after a long time so direct marketing works. It's not that it doesn't work anymore. It works. There are many of us sending similar messages to similar people. So once you realize that, because e-learning now is at a different place than it was 5 years ago with as many people who know about it. I was doing e-learning. I didn't even know it had a name to it. I didn't even know what it was when I first started doing it. It was like, oh, you want me to do some more teacher stuff? I can do that in my sleep. So when I say I cheat, I hire people to do my marketing sometimes, not all the time, but I have never gotten less than a 4-to-1 return on my investment back when I spend $200 for 3 months, or sometimes $400 for 3 months. I have never not gotten my investment back, and that's why I
Not
do it.
cheating, Terry. That's
I'm
delegating.
being silly. You know it.
That's not cheating.
Gosh.
That's building your business.
Do it.
Yeah, it's being a business person, right? It's realizing I can do my marketing. I don't do my marketing very well because the follow-up is where the marketing really happens. It's not that email going out. It's not that email. It's following up like, oh, I haven't heard back. Let me check in. How often should I check in? What should my tone be like? And then, okay, so 17 people out of the 400 people you sent. Now, that to me, I am diagnosed with ADHD. If there's anybody neurodiverse in the call, and you may be able to do it. That's why I say, like, I have to. That's my support and my coping is to get somebody help. Now, having said that, I still do direct marketing. I still go and I do searches on LinkedIn because you can get very specific to what decision maker you want in a company. It is so easy to pull up a list of e-learning companies nowadays. But it's the people, you want to get to the right person, either the project manager or the instructional designer. It used to be we thought we can just go to the instructional designer. They often don't have anything to do with decisions. Sometimes they do. But the project manager has the budget, and they also know the other projects going on in the company. So that project manager may be working on this set. They may have 100 other projects that instructional designer doesn't really have anything to do with. So that's another tip, is to look for the project manager in the company. And LinkedIn makes it easy to find people and just go through and look at what their titles are. Sometimes they're fancy. I think instructional designers have over like 12 or 15 different titles, and they're growing every day. So that's one way, direct marketing. And Dan, I'll let you, and Tish, if you have some other.
Yeah, I mean, early on, it was the place to find it. You generally was on the pay-to-play sites, not that there's such a great deal today. Back when there was, several thousand people on those sites, it was easier to find work. Now there's hundreds of thousands of people, on those, and the competition is fierce. And the strategies for how you use them, there's a couple of courses on how you can do that kind of stuff. I have found, once I established a few clients that way, they would always come back to the well because they knew I was going to do the job right for them. So I haven't really done a lot of advanced marketing since then, because I had clients that I've had for 10 years, and they will continue to come to see me and ask me to do something. But it's generally a matter of doing your footwork and getting on the horn and, getting to the receptionist and saying, who's the person that does your e-learning video production? And can I talk to them? And just get through that way. And depending on the size of the company or how much video work that they've done, they probably have not been using any professional voice people. And it will lend an air of professionalism to it. And that's the way you've got to sell it. This is what I do. I'm a professional voice talent. I specialize in e-learning, whether you do or not. See, that's beyond cheating. That's just plain lying. But
we're just all the badness today going on.
Yeah, that's right.
Lying.
I mean, it's Milton Berle was once asked, what's the key to comedy? And he goes, theft. But boy, I'm dating myself with that one, but
so bringing us back to the integrity of e-learning. And then I guess the question is like, I think that also is a mindset, say yes until it's time to say no, and then understand if you're building this relationship. So it probably behooves you to kind of know what it is that you're doing. What is an e-learning project?
I wouldn't do that off the top. I mean,
maybe make sure that you understand what an e-learning job is and what are the requirements. And I think with any job, whether you're doing commercial or animation or video game or e-learning or anything, the more we can have the mindset of, as Terry was talking about, how do we fit into somebody's workflow? With everybody who is an educator or working in corporate, and working in corporate marketing or corporate communications, this is what you're doing. You know the people, you know what the needs are, you know the format that it's needed, right? So you have a little leg up. And so the e-learning, I think e-learning can be a low-hanging fruit for everybody, because there are some basic concepts and some basic ways that you understand what a project is and what it requires and what skills it requires, right? But if you do this all the time, and this is what you know, then it's the even lower hanging fruit. So make sure that while you're direct marketing, it could be like, hello, I'm here. Hello, I'm here. And then you get to be chosen and you're like, oh, actually, I don't know how to ride a horse. Hold on a second. You can always figure it out, but just, be in your awareness of that balance of when are you know when you're ready or ready-ish, so that when you do, I say this with audiobooks too, like, yeah, anybody can audition for anything on ACX. Just be careful, because if you're out messing around, with auditions, you could get pregnant with an audiobook, right? You could get pregnant with 3 audiobooks at the same time, right? And e-learning projects are not as are sort of mid like if you're doing track and field, they're sort of that middle range. They're not sprints, but they're sort of that middle range of narration. But it takes some time and it takes some planning, and you need to be able to deliver. So all of those things are also things to take into consideration as you even start to direct market, right?
Yeah, and whatever you do, don't go on Facebook and say, how do I do a project like this? I would say contact Tish or one of the sensei at the dojo who can walk you through that kind of stuff if you need those questions answered.
And that's actually a really good segue to Terri. Maybe you can tell a little bit about the E-Learning Accelerator, just in a nutshell, because that's basically what the course that you've created is about, right? Like, here's the foundations, here's the things you need to know. So we're going to take just a 1 minute, just a little second, because we want to get some more questions, but it'll probably answer a lot of questions in terms of wherever everybody is at. Because I think if you've been doing it, it's probably good to always complement and supplement. And then if you don't know exactly what it is, it's a great way to start. So why don't you tell us about that?
Sure, I'm excited about it. So about a year ago, I started thinking about sharing what I know, because you know how you do something, we all have stuff we do well and we don't think it's anything special. And as I saw more and more people being interested, I said I should probably share. And I started by sending a survey to instructional designers around the country. And what I learned was, I mean, I guess I didn't know. So one of the biggest things that they shared, I turned what they shared with me into modules in a course. So one of the things they shared is that like what they love about working with voice talent and what they can't stand, and how they are looking at us to be problem solvers. So first of all, these are people who are incredibly passionate about what they do. And so how we frame ourselves, how we write, how we post about how we feel about e-learning is something you want to just be aware of. I don't know if they're checking up on you, but if you're going to use words like low hanging fruit as if like it's easier to get as opposed to like a commercial, then just be careful, because they are incredibly passionate people. And they don't want to, you know what I'm saying, that could make them feel that you feel a certain way about what they do and they may not be interested. So just be, and if you're passionate about learning, like there are a lot of us who are very passionate about people, and teaching people and how delicate someone is and vulnerable when they're trying to learn. So I have found, working with the instructional designers, that they're also looking for people who are passionate. Like, think about when you go to the doctor, you want the doctor who's like really telling you about all your results and like really is passionate about your wellness. And so they're looking for people who are also passionate. Now, they also need people who are fast and know what they're doing. One of the things that I found out is that they get ghosted by voiceover artists sometimes who really want to be doing animation. And so when an animation project comes up, they'll drop their project. And this has happened enough times that people are a little leery. So showing that you're reliable. And of course, I go through with an instructional designer, like we come up with the letter that would get other people's attention, because one thing we don't do well in our outreach is tell what skills we actually have. We say we're fast, we say we're good, we say we're, we've got this equipment and we'll help you, but we don't really say that we know specific skills to make that learning stick with our voice. And so I show you that in the course and a whole bunch of other things. We've got not just me, but 5 or 6 other voiceover talent from the industry. We've got interviews from instructional designers. We've got templates galore. So that's a little bit.
It's a self-guided course, Terry?
It's a self-guided course, and there's a private Facebook community too. So if you have questions like what's happening here, you can get real-time answers and things like that. So we're pre-launching, and we're launching next week. And there's a webinar that we'll put in the link if you want to come, because I teach one of the lessons in the webinar. Mm-hmm. And yeah. I didn't know that was over more than a minute. I tried to give a lot of answers.
It's good, but so there's a resource that is being launched, and then of course, everything we do at the dojo is creating that space to explore all of the genres and make sure that you are confident and clear and understand how each of the games work for all of the genres. Excellent. Well, let's get a couple more questions. I saw one about AI. I don't know where that is in the queue, but I think it's a good thing that would be great to get answered within the hour, because it's a big, important thing that's important for all of us, and not just in terms of e-learning, but in terms of the voiceover world. And Terry's been working in that realm as well.
A quick clarifier from Terry. When you're editing, do you edit yourself or contract that out? Depends on the both.
Well, depends on how busy. I'm really fast at editing. I've gotten really fast at editing. I share that too. But if I have a bunch of projects or I want to go on vacation, I hire that out. It's not expensive to hire it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And nobody touches my work.
But you are the master. So.
Well, I know what I sound like, and I'm a good editor. So
yes, you are.
And I love editing. So
right, and those are the things that each of us, for each of our businesses, it may be, you may not be a home studio master. It may be really clunky and learning curve for you still, and it makes maybe someone else does a better job, someone else does a faster job, which makes it more efficient for everybody. And if you hate it and someone else loves it, that's great. If you love it and you can do it fast, then incorporate that into your, that's money in your pocket, right? So everybody's going to have different things, different ways that we each set up our business and our voiceover practice. So, yeah. But I think one of the things that starting out is that we have to do everything ourselves, and it's easy to get overwhelmed. And that's an entrepreneurial mindset that one needs to learn. So, yeah, cool.
Thank you. So the next question is from Venus Crute.
Hey,
Venus, if you'd like to come on in.
Hey, let me fix that for you. It's Crute. I won't answer if you call me.
Thank you, Crute.
So hi, Tish. Good to see you again. Dan, good to see you. Jeffrey, oh my God, he's so great. I just want to tell you that. Terry, pleasure meeting you. This is my first time. You're so enthusiastic. I got a couple of questions. I talk fast sometimes, which they tell me to slow down, especially when I'm doing narration. And I just did a patent class, and I'm telling you, I was dreading all of that. I tried to give it away. It came through an agent, and I was like, no. But they came back, and they kept coming back, and it's finished, and it feels like such a wonderful accomplishment. But herein lies my first question. So when you do this, it's not e-learning. Well, it is e-learning. It was for patent. So when you do this, there was supposed to be an introductory video that I was going to get a copy of. They decided to not use me on the introductory video, but I'm all on the training class from, first module to the last module. So how do you get a copy of your actual work for demo? Because when you're doing this, people want your actual work.
I'm sorry to laugh.
It's okay. That must mean the answer is not so good.
So think like your company, you have your way, you're training your employees, and the last thing you want is your competitors to know what's happening inside.
Mm-hmm,
it is a very difficult thing, not because people don't love you, because my people love me, but they can't most times. Now, there are times when they do, and when they do, but always ask. always be asking because sometimes they'll surprise you.
Mhm.
Or I'll say, could you just give me a screenshot so I could still do
Yeah.
the, like, and change the name. You know,
Mhm.
I'll do that part. So it's not, so if you really need a lot of external like affirmation, e-learning is not going to make you feel good because you can rarely share. I did
Okay.
and you could be doing 10 jobs in a week and you probably won't be able to share what you
Okay.
did.
All right.
Sometimes people don't even want you to share that you work for them
Oh,
publicly, that you like, oh, thanks so and so, you know, into I can share that I do a lot of work for Intuit, but some companies don't even want you publicizing that. They just I guess it's legal is involved in internal training. Um, so
well,
yeah,
that's good to know before I go and do that.
yeah, so all my demo, none of my demo, my current demo is jobs. They may have been extrapolated from the scripts, so it sounds
Okay.
real and up to
Okay.
date. Because
All
even
right.
that's changing. E-learning is getting more advanced. It's getting the more we learn about how people learn. And
Mhm.
millennials, thank you, because millennials have demanded in the workplace that the companies not only train them for the job, but train them for upward mobility. And so
Yeah.
because of that, you've got a lot more rich e-learning modules and more, I'm not gonna say infotainment, but just they're a little bit more fun. Instructional designers work really hard at making their courses something that's respectful to the learner and enjoyable. E-learning is supposed to inspire joy. Learning
Right. Right. Right.
is we love to learn. We don't like
Yeah.
school. We might have had a bad experience in school, but as people, we love to learn as humans.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to try to include the others into one another. So is your work 2 to 4 hours or 6 to 8 hour sessions? And when you bill, are you billing on net 30, net 60, net 90? What?
I bill net 30. Most of my clients pay me almost immediately.
Okay.
They're really fast. That's one of the beautiful things. Same day sometimes, especially when you know the client. Now, new clients, who knows? But once you know the client, you give them the invoice, they're happy to get it out their hair.
Mhm.
And the other one was, how long does it take me?
Yeah.
So is that kind of what it was? Like how many
Oh,
hours?
they started me out with 4 hour sessions, which was really grueling because of the subject content. And I said, no, I need 2 hours. And
And
then
you're
sometimes we
working
did one.
with someone in a
I'm
live
working with the
session?
client on
Okay.
Zoom, not Source Connect, and I'm doing the taping
Got
and
you.
then I'm sending it to them.
I
So,
haven't done a lot of live sessions
Mhm.
in all the e-learning work
Me
I've
neither.
done.
Yeah,
It's been,
Directed sessions are very rare in e-learning.
yeah.
but there are e-learning houses.
Mhm.
So like, I don't want to say the names wrong in what they do, but there are, let's just say e-learning voices
Mhm.
who do, so you're like a subcontractor of them to a client. So think about that too. And that does affect what rate, because then they are telling you what rate they're going to pay you. And I don't want to say a name because I might have their name wrong and that
Right.
might be not
Right.
their structure. But just so I kind of don't do a lot through houses because I like to do it directly. But that is something I do at sometimes. And so my point was that they do sometimes require a live session because they have a signature sound and way.
Right.
And so that's why it's live.
Right.
Right. So then you'd be working with a producer at an e-learning house, and then the client hires the producer hires you, and you work with that producer, is how that rolls.
Right.
That's
They
And
did
I
the
just,
editing.
can I just add to, so another problem that instructional designers talk about is wanting us to help solve their problems, even though you've never had like conversations where you've heard that, but that's what they're telling me. And part of that is having a diverse network of people that you can refer, because your voice is not going to be right for every training they do because they're training people, C-level, people in the field. So please make sure that you have a robust network of other people. It's not that they won't love your voice and want to keep you, because it's not so hard to book an e-learning job, but you want to become that person they keep coming to. So to do that, you need to be a problem solver. And Sybil, who's on the call, and we have just been chatting in the e-learning narrators Facebook group, which if you are interested, that's definitely a great place to come and ask questions and search. So we're doing summer sessions this summer just to help people. You know, how do you get a diverse network if everybody, like I realized when I was making this course and I was asking people to, you know, do you want to help co-teach? Everybody looked like me. It wasn't very diverse. So I had to, you know, have a DEI talk with myself in my own company and say, hey, you've got to take some extra effort. And so we're trying to make that easy and fun to happen. So we're hosting summer socials this week for DEI. On our first one is it the 26th, Sybil? Did I have that right? The 26th, and you can go to the eLearning Narrators Facebook group and check it out.
Thanks so much, Terry. I appreciate it. And
You're
I'll be
very
following you
welcome,
and
Venus.
asking
Appreciate it.
questions.
And I think we're coming into the last couple of minutes, so maybe we'll wrap up with how to keep in touch with everyone here, so we can finish at the top of the hour. And then Dan and Terry, do you have a couple minutes after the top of the hour for the after hour questions? And if you don't, no
Couple,
worries.
just for a little bit.
Yeah, like we'll hang out for 10 minutes and see what other questions that we can answer. Awesome. So in terms of what's going on at the dojo, we do this the first Wednesday of every month. So if you want to put it on your calendar, there's always something good happening. We also have Get to Know VO on the third Wednesday of every month. That is usually free or low cost. And then if you're just on the beginning of your journey, we have a You Should Do Voiceover 6-week intensive that's starting out this Saturday, right, Jeffrey? Yeah, so we have a couple spots left for the class that starts this week. If you are on your journey, we have our nth degree working pro. And if you are on your journey and want to really dive into the next level of your work on your journey, we have our 14-month free, it's not free, our 14-month full training program called From Mystery to Mastery. It's way not free, but but it is way comprehensive and way taking everything that you need to know in a really concentrated way. So if you're interested in anything that's going on at the dojo, www.thevodojo.com. And also you can sign up for a Voiceover Once Over, a free 15-minute call and talk with Jeffrey. We'll get a sense of where you're at and where you'd like to be and how we might be able to help you. So always, and then fight clubs are coming up this summer. We have two our working pro workouts. Working pro workouts bring top-notch talent together with the decision makers who hire us. Got some fantastic people coming up, and you can spectate and you can participate if you have demo reps and booking. So always something good going on at the dojo. What's up for you, Dan, and how do people keep in touch with you? I think Jeffrey's putting all this in the chatty chat too. So
Find me at homevoiceoverstudio.com. You know, where I'm always, if you contact me there, you know, you'll find me. We just renewed my webpage, so the specimen collection cup is at the top of the page now. So when you go to homevoiceoverstudio.com, you want to send me a sample for $25, I will do a very thorough analysis of your audio and give you some suggestions on how to make it better. If it's really bad, then we need to talk a little bit more.
And you do consultations with people wherever you are, right? Yeah, right. You don't have to come to.
Yeah, and watch Voiceover Body Shop, which is on Facebook all the time. And you know, we do it live on every other Monday night, but we have a new guest every other week, and then George Whittam and I talk about VO tech and answer your questions.
Yeah, and that's a great way to just hang around and hear people talking tech, so it becomes less scary. So you go, oh wait, I know what that is. Find out who all the teams are at least, right? Yeah, and Terry, I know Terry is one of our amazing senseis in the Mystery to, and you know, in the dojo, in our Mystery to Mastery core and Mystery to Mastery full program, and also. How do people keep in touch with you about the Voiceover E-Learning Accelerator?
Yeah, there is. So I'm on social media everywhere at Terri Nicole VO, TerriNicoleVO.com. And I think Jeffrey dropped in the chat. I have a link for the free webinar. And again, I'll be teaching some of the e-learning voiceover specific skills, as I call them, next week for free on Thursday.
Excellent. Good.
Yeah, and feel free, if you have questions too, you know, you can reach out through my website on the contact form. I'm happy and geeky to answer anything.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, so that is the official ending of the Ask the Sensei for July. We can hang out for if you need to roll thank you for being here. We'll see you next month, and please do give us a call and let us know how we can help you to get to where you want to be in your voiceover career.
Thank you all so much. Such an
And
honor.
if you want to hang out for a couple more minutes, we'll take a few more questions. Shall we go and continue on the order of appearance, Jeffrey, or how do we-
Sure. Here we go. So I was asked to pose this question. Is there a place that I can get public domain, non-copyrighted e-learning scripts to make a e-learning demo?
Oh, for a demo. I know Edge Studio has scripts. I hate to sound like
And
in
I
my
would-
course you get 20 scripts, but that's true. You get 20.
Well,
e-learning
yeah,
scripts.
that's it. But I think like any demo, you don't want to go to the same place so everyone comes with the
Oh, that's
same
right, for a demo.
outfit,
Okay.
right? So for a demo, you probably want to figure out. I don't know. I mean, what would you like? It seems to me that like how would you do that? Because it seems like you could listen to stuff and transcribe it, but then how do you make sure you're not what's
I
that?
write my own
Infringing.
Yeah, so I write my own based on, well, my demo producer and I just took some things that are current. We have sort of our areas that we want to cover for in 2021. So like one for tech, I do military, so there's a lot of work in government. And so I had something like for the military, and what I don't have, which I'm like, how did I do? I don't have a scenario. So scenarios are when you're like, oh, can I use my CVS, computer to watch, Netflix and those kind of things where they want to show real. So you want to have a scenario on there, but you can take once you know what e-learning is and you really understand what clients are looking for, you can take modern literally modern stuff and tweak it with a demo producer. You do need someone to help you with that.
Your recommendation. So I think there's always the distinction between making a sample and making a demo.
That's right. You can make a sample.
So a sample is something that is like, here's me kind of doing this, but I think in your mind and as you're presenting it as business, understand this is a sample. And then as you're presenting something as a demo, you probably would like to work with someone who is a demo producer that would produce a finished
I want to say yes.
demo journey. But
I want to say yes. And talking to the instructional designers, e-learning is a different world from like voiceover in some aspects, right? They're not casting agents, and you know what I'm saying? They're people that are like, you sound real good. Like that's better than Betty in accounting who's been doing it for us. Samples are fine. And also if they say, hey, can you record this audio report? Like sometimes they don't even call scripts. That's how different we're going into their world. That's, I think, is a key mindset shift. You're going into a corporate world and they have their own language that they speak to each other in about this. And you are an important part, but they're not sitting around like, okay, play Amy now. Let's hear Deshaun. Like, it's not that. It's not that. So a sample, like Tish was saying, you're saying, Tish, is important to have, a couple different things that are a sample. You can start. I don't think I'm going to say it boldly because I started by taking e-learning jobs that I was booking and putting them together. No music and all that. I just put them together and I was booking work from it. So now I have a big fancy shiny one.
but just the stuff that was not NDA.
It was not NDA. It's not.
Yeah, that's super important.
What?
As you're looking for work, but making sure, because that will end your relationship with somebody in a heartbeat. So
right.
Yeah. Hopefully that's helpful. Whoever's question that was. What else? What other questions, Jeffrey?
Let's see. From if Catherine Leese is still with, yes. Catherine Leese, you had a question. Good to see you. If you're still with us, go ahead and unmute yourself and come into the room.
Hello, nice to see everybody.
Hello.
Thanks for hanging out briefly, Terry. Excited to see you again. I have a question because I do numerous types of voiceover, but I've gotten some nice traction and feedback with e-learning. Don't have a demo yet, but I'm curious do you have a feeling that there are some very big pitfalls in general that we should be avoiding versus other narration styles for e-learning? You've sort of answered it a little bit with instructional designers, and they have very specific needs, and the project managers. But is there sort of a general feeling in terms of how e-learning is moving in your experience versus a perception that it's very sort of formulaic? And so I was curious about that. If you have, a couple of things that are like, whatever you do, don't do this.
Or not listening for film strips, right?
Right. And just, where it's going. And what was the other part of my question? Because I submitted it a while ago, so I can't really remember what I said.
I can do the first part.
I've got you.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
So biggest pitfalls, and do you see trend styles emerging that are now preferred? Was that the second part?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I go it specifically in how we're not auditioning for it necessarily in the same way, but that would be good to hear.
Yeah, Catherine, thank you for that question. I think there are absolutely pitfalls. I hear it all the time. It has to do with what you said about perception. Sometimes our perception of teaching is like, oh, once we get to be the teacher, we're in charge, and you get almost like I don't want to say condescending, but it's leaning towards like, I'm up here, you're down there, and listen. And it is a mindset that teachers go. That's why teachers and corporate trainers have a bit of an edge, because you learn how people learn. And it's, we think about people having assessments in school and college and things. Assessment actually means to sit next to. So if you can adopt a tone that's really an ally, and again, I teach this in my course, an ally to the learner. This person who has 23 minutes on average in corporate America to take in their e-learning, that's mandatory and time sensitive. So that's one of the pieces, and we talk about how to make an e-learning module a dialogue with the learner. And so teachers know that our good teachers is assessing their students every 6 seconds and making adjustments. And so it's really bringing that feel, because people feel very alone during e-learning. They're just like stuck in the cubicle or in their car while their kids are trying to do something. And so the more supported you can make somebody, so that hopefully that answers that first part, learning to really make a dialogue and exhibit care toward the learner. And then trends, like I think I answered that a little bit early, just a little bit more active e-learning is the scripts are getting more scripty because people are very aware of what people are taking in as information and how it sounds. And so e-learning can't just sound like totally terrible that you want to tune it out. So it's more engaging. It's more like, what is this person going to get out of this type scenario?
Excellent. Yay. Good questions. What else? I think we have time for maybe one or two more.
Yeah.
How quickly go?
There's a few. Yeah. Do we want to try to just quickly go through? There's a few that could just be yes or no quick questions.
Sure.
Okay. So I will state the name of the person who asked it. I will pose the question to one of the panelists, and then we'll give a succinct answer and just go through as many left as we have. So first question, I will ask Tish from Lena. I'm so sorry if I slandered this. Del Robo. Are most e-learning jobs presently dependent on having Source Connect? Okay.
No, and it's interesting. So no.
Great.
We'll play the game.
Standard answer, yeah.
Great. From Katrina Owens to Terry, would you submit a narration demo for an e-learning audition, or create a specific one for that particular area?
It's best to create a specific one. If you have a narration one, I would not let that stop me. So I would throw my hat in the ring with what I have, and then be moving towards. Now, if you have a narration one, it might not be hard for you to put 2 or 3 samples together in e-learning. So Katrina, if you want to connect with me and you need some scripts, I can give you some scripts.
Great, thank you. So then, Dan, I think this is a good one for you. This is from Maxi. Do you include an additional per file charge in your fees, especially for those jobs that have hundreds of files?
I generally have not, but that doesn't mean you can't. Does that mean I leave money on the table? Well, it's a trade-off. When you work really well with your clients, they'll always come back to the well. And so I generally have not been charging more for that. I suppose I could, but because I do it so fast, and I think like an editor when I'm recording,
Mm.
it helps a whole lot to just get the stuff done and get it out, and spend as little time on it as possible, except to maybe read through it once or twice. Take the time to do it right, but don't worry about if it's going to take a long time. I mean, if they're constantly sending you pickups or something like that, and they're like, oh, we decided to change something, absolutely you're going to charge if they make a mistake or if they want to change the copy or something along those lines. And I have an agreement up front. If there's going to be pickups, let's set a rate for that. If there are going to be pickups, and they know there's going to be pickups, I build that into the initial price. So I don't want it to be really complicated for my client. You've got a lot of clients out there that have no idea what on earth they're doing. They're usually some corporate weenie that's putting together a PowerPoint presentation. And it's your job to make their job easier. So the more you know, the more experienced you are. If you know more than they do, you don't talk over them, or you don't try and oversell what you do. But here's how I'm going to do this. Does this work for you? And they'll usually go, yeah, okay. The thing is most of the people doing this are about 30 years younger than me. So, I just give them the old, you do understand, don't you? And, but
I think this goes back to understanding the workflow you're stepping into, understanding your own workflow, and then making sure that you understand that labeling and delivering is part of the job. So you could charge that separately, or like, if you use a credit card with a business, then that costs more for the business, but then the business probably has it built in that we know that if everybody's going to cost this much more, so we'll build it into our prices. So that's also kind of your business structure, and understanding the process fully, so you can make sure that your time and efforts are in, if you were going to charge 30 cents per word, then maybe it is 35% cents per word, just to make sure you have that buffer to cover that time.
That's a smart thing. It's how you want to do your business, right? So there are things I don't charge for that other talent charge for, and I do charge $1 per split file because it takes me probably longer than it does Dan. So he has an edge, right? Because his client, we quote the same job, they're going to be like, oh, okay, he's going to come in, $112 cheaper because there's 112 files, and Terry's going to charge 100 dollar per file. So but maybe my per word rate is more. It's really important not to keep messing with your clients, right? With, oh, this fee and this fee and this fee, and simple. So get paid your worth and make it simple for the client at the same time. So whatever works for you. I've been doing the dollar per file since I started, and so my clients are kind of trained, and now to not do it would be confusing. Like, which clients, I don't need that. I don't need that. So I just keep doing it. But I hear, dang, now I'm not going to bid on the ones that Dan bids on.
Here's the thing. I generally don't bid. I'm not a paving contractor.
Right.
I think that's a real issue in our business, is that, you have some clients, what's your best price?
Right.
My best price. If it's somebody that's trying to lowball you, you don't want to work for them anyway.
I want to work for them.
You want to work with professional companies, and you work with professional companies by them being open and honest with you in any negotiations you have. If they're like, it's like, if you're on one of the pay to play sites, they state a budget. I always go for the upper end of the budget. They hire me, great. If not, there's plenty of work to go around. And of course, I haven't been doing a lot of auditioning lately. So
not for e-learning.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing. I think the best thing I love about that, Dan, is about not bidding. Like there's a part of e-learning that's like such a happy, safe place. I mean, you wake up to, a lot of mornings to like, oh, here's the job I didn't audition for, right? This is my client I didn't audition for. I know when I have to do it back, I can figure out in the next 2 days when I'm going to do it. And there's this nice for me. It's a nice, peaceful, happy place, and I love helping people. So I think that's important. I don't hear that enough when we talk about e-learning. That
Mhm.
it's one of the ones where you get to feel really good when you're done, because these are people who are trying to get skills or pass a test or make a better workplace so that so and so doesn't harass so and so, and they're like, oh, that's not okay. Okay. I learned this in the privacy of my headphones, in between commercials of binge watching something, whatever, people are taking it in. And so I think that's a really lovely thing about e-learning, is that you're actually
Yeah.
helping people and companies grow and learn.
Hey, on that note, there's a really fun question that both Thomas and Terry Risco posed. So I'll start with you, Terry. Do you have a favorite e-learning genre? And if so, what is it?
Ooh, a favorite. Yeah, because there's like legal e-learning, there's law enforcement e-learning, there's kids, there's what is my I like ones where I get to have fun and do character voices. So anything that lets me do scenarios. Some people have big budgets and they'll do crazy stuff, and I'm like the crazy, like she'll do a Long Island accent as a black woman because that makes sense. I'll
Mhm.
go and do it. So yeah, so anything that lets me have characters, because then I get to practice my character stuff.
Awesome. And Dan, same question posed to you. What is your favorite e-learning genre?
My favorite e-learning genre is e-learning because I learn so much depending on what it is I'm talking about. And generally, I know what I'm talking about because I'm old and I've seen it all. And I mean, I did one on how to operate it wasn't even a lift bridge, it was a bridge that turned, and there was an entire manual on how to do this. But if you understand the basics of what they're talking about, you can sound like you know what you're talking about because you actually do. If you're young and inexperienced, then you got to fake it a little bit and understand, who the audience is, which is the most important thing with any e-learning is who are you talking to, where are you talking to them, why are you talking to them, what are you talking to them about, and getting into their heads and into their headspace of what it is they're trying to do. With e-learning, it's generally how long is this going to last. If you can engage them from the front and be humorous, and you don't want to ad lib too much, but if you sound friendly and you talk about here's the gearbox for the for the lift bridge, what it's like. It's like that. Read the copy, work with the developer. You don't want to rewrite their stuff because generally, and I'm sure Terry will back me up on this, they tend to write for the written word and not the spoken word. So you've got to learn how to throw contractions in there and, the legalities of how you do certain things. I do medical narration because I can say ankylosing spondylitis without thinking too much about it. Compliance stuff for insurance companies and banks. It's all information that is just about life. And if you can understand the basics of that stuff, I just love doing that kind of stuff.
Great. And then Tish, you mentioned something about an AI question. And if you remember what it was, great. And then if not, maybe that's just a general, how is AI affecting e-learning opportunities?
Yeah, it's a little bit probably a bigger question than we have time for.
I
But
think that's
Terry,
a whole hour's worth right
yeah,
there.
Terry,
That's true.
I know as we were talking the other day, you had kind of like a little
A little shorts. Okay.
observation, because it really is a huge topic. And maybe what we should do, Terry, is plan to do a get to know VO soon about that.
Okay.
We can open it up for an hour, but right now we've brought it up, so let's do a little concise, and then we'll wrap up. So I know I need to roll, and I
I
bet you
have a real
all
short,
have things to
I
do.
real
Yeah.
short.
Mhm.
Many companies who are selling AI voices, they're part of our zeitgeist. Is they're not coming, they're here. And so as professionals who own businesses, we have to realize they're part of the competitive landscape. Don't make your e-learning clients feel like they have to choose. Let them know that you're the talent that is yes and. Yes, I realize there are places where an AI voice might fit you when you are using a human voice. I've been trained in blah, 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 blah. I know how to actively engage your audience with e-learning specific skills. So just realize they're part of the landscape and don't try to act like they're not. That's the short and skinny.
Yeah. And then position yourself as the human.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
That's really the most important thing about AI. You know, I've come to the conclusion that there's no way they can imitate or emulate what goes on in somebody's brain and when they're making a decision about how they're going to say something. It can't adjust for tonality. It can't adjust for excitement. It's just a voice. It works in 15 seconds, longer than 15 seconds, as good as they're going to try and get with this. I don't see it replacing us. It's certainly not with companies that understand that they want to deal with a human.
That's a really good point. Budget matters.
Yeah. I mean, if I've done stuff that could have easily been done by AI, and they didn't skimp on it. And and it was a really long project. It was really good paying because they wanted a human, because it was for information for the blind, and they wanted a human voice for it. And that's if they want to go for for AI, I tend to think that they're not, you don't want to work for them anyway. One, they don't understand that they're trying to engage an audience, and two, they're probably cheap. And they think that AI is cheaper. Good luck programming all the stuff and all the subtleties of the human voice into that. I say that, and I probably sound like, somebody from 1910, but, and I'm probably wrong, and it's going to get better. Oh, it's getting a whole lot better. It's not, and it won't replace us. The only time I hear, where they try to make it sound human is they try to insert every now and again and make it sound like the person is actually breathing. Otherwise, it gets very, very, very boring after a while. And the last thing people want with e-learning is boring. It'll work for attention in the terminal, that sort of thing. Yeah, you can get away with it with that. If you're trying to communicate one-on-one with people, AI is not the way to do it unless you're super duper cheap. And again, if someone's super duper cheap, you don't want to be working for them anyway. And there are plenty of opportunities out there. So I wouldn't sweat it. And there are companies now that are licensing AI voices, and there's a whole discussion on that. So I think that deserves a whole hour or a whole different.
Yeah, I think we should make a get to know you about that soon. Yeah. Well, let's wrap up with that. And I think one of my takeaways from today is really understanding what is at the heart of e-learning, right? What is at the heart of e-learning? What is the purpose of e-learning, and how do you bring your heart to it? And that's really and that goes back to why we as voiceover artists get hired, because we do bring that human element. And what can you bring of yourself? And that is how we really communicate. It's that exchange of what is really going on that differentiates any of us. Anyone can read this. We bring ourselves, we bring it to life, right? We bring it to that level of communication. So that's in all of the genres. Yeah. Well, thanks for hanging out, everybody. This has been super fantastic. If you have stuff that you like, things that you want, subjects on and questions about, email us. Let us know what who can we have for Ask the Sensei? What kind of subjects are you interested in delving into? Because we can bring them together. We can get the people for Fight Clubs too, who's doing what. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, Terry. And thank you, Dan, as always, and Jeffrey, as always. And I love that we're seeing regulars here. This is great. And look forward to hearing you on, talking with you on VOOs and getting everyone rolling this summer. But thanks, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.
So good to see you. Bye-bye.